Hello, gentlemen. I hope everybody's doing well as always. I wanted to talk today about stress. It's something we all face and we all know it pretty well, at least. Actually, last night, my computer, my laptop, shit it out on me, if you will. And it stopped working. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty simple fix, cross your fingers. But it's funny how things like laptops and things like electronics, they all seem to go bad right when you don't want them to. When you least expect it, they just all seem to go bad. So it led me to think about something, which is dealing with stress. I learned a lot about how to deal with stress from reading about survival books and things like that. Because what's interesting about stress is that it is a primitive survival instinct. And in our modern day culture, stress is over amplified in meaningless things. We stress over things that really shouldn't matter. People call that rich people problems. We're not worried and stressed about being eaten alive by a wild animal, even though we do stress, at least the people that are quote unquote awake, understand that there's constant stress of the thought and the fear of being attacked or even killed in some cases by forces beyond our control. So whenever you look at stress, you have to realize that you have to know what stress is, and it is a biological survival instinct. And in our modern day world, it has been amplified by things that we think are actually stressful when they're really not. Not real stress, survival type of stress. Worrying about eating and worrying about getting eaten alive or killed or whatnot. So when my computer broke last night, was I stressed? Sort of. But I think what allows people to be able to deal with a lot of stress is constantly being exposed to stress, different forms of stress, physical, psychological, mental. Because the more you usually get exposed to something, the better you know how to handle it, because you have been through it before. If it hits you broadside and you don't know what's coming, you're really going to be in a really different situation. One of the things I learned is what they always teach many people is to stay calm. Because the very first thing that happens when you become stressed is your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate increases, you might be angry and frustrated, and you add on all those emotions on top of being angry and frustrated, and your heart's beating and your blood pressure is rising. It's very exhausting on you psychologically and physically, being under that kind of stress. And if you don't know how to deal with it, you're going to cause yourself more harm than good, because you're going to wear yourself out not being able to control your stress. So the very first thing I did, and it is an unfortunate situation, and I'm just using this as an example because it's a modern day thing that happens to us, that little things like that stress us out. But I simply told myself, this sucks, it's unfortunate, but we need to diagnose the problem and we need to try to get it fixed. Instead of freaking out and losing, our minds over something that really isn't that big of a deal. And this just comes to show you, like I was saying, rich people problems. Just because a computer broke doesn't mean you're going to die. But we stress that we think we are. One of the reasons I'm so against the mainstream media, and I was talking about in my previous video why I hate social media, is because it creates an artificial sense of stress in your life that is not needed. It's all artificial, it's fake. And the people play along with the charade. And they just end up being agents in this matrix and creating this matrix without them even realizing it. So eventually other people become toxic and poisonous to your ability to deal with stress. And especially in a survival situation, you have to have the ability to manage and handle stress, because typically if you're in a situation that is so extreme that it causes you to be in a survival state where you're literally moving on your feet and you don't know, you're gonna have to kill your food and that kind of stuff, shit hits the fan type stuff. You're gonna be under more stress than probably you have ever been in your entire life. And when I look around at people, one of the reasons why it's preparation and being prepared is such a important aspect of, number one, being prepared, but also dealing with whatever event might be, is the fact that most people that are intelligent and know about dangerous situations, potentially dangerous situations, understand that other people, it's like when you're driving, you might be a great driver, but other people, you don't know if they are, and most of the time they're not. Most of the time you have to watch out what other people are doing because they're not paying attention, right? They're not in their own lane, taking care of their business. And so I use that as an example to illustrate that in the modern day society, in an extreme stressful situation, most people just freak out because they can't handle the stress. Most women can't handle the stress. That's why they do outlandish things most of the times in high stressful situations. Because they haven't had the ability or been exposed to real stressful situations. So your mind and your brain just kind of overloads and you freak out as a reaction to the situation. It's like if you get poked with a needle or you're getting your blood drawn and you've never had a needle poked into your body like that, you're going to have a reaction, which is the pain. But if you have had it done before, you know what to expect the pain, and you can control that pain. You can learn how to work with the pain. Same thing applies to stress. You know how to work with the stress. It's like that martial art of Aikido, I think it's AKKIDO. And they teach people how not to exert energy, but to use energy. Right? When someone swings at you, they teach you how to use the momentum of the body to use that energy and that motion against the opponent without having to exert as much energy as the opponent is exerting. So they teach you that when you're pushing through, when somebody's punching at you, you grab the elbow and you follow through with the punch, because the momentum, all you need is a slight bit of boost on your end and they will be on the ground without you even lifting a finger. Just go look up Aikido. A really well-trained master in it can go against like 20 guys with one hand. Just look it up. Steven Seagal made it kind of popular, but it's always been a popular sport, and I've always found it very interesting. But they teach you how to follow through with the punches. Use energy to your will. Learn how to blend with energy. Same thing with stress. Learn how to work with stress. Learn how to manage stress. Some people have different ways of handling stress. Some people drink, some people smoke. Some people do many different things. So everybody has a vice to help them deal with stress. Ultimately, stress is always going to be there unless you know how to handle it and I shouldn't say tamper, tame the unwanted feelings that stress brings upon you, like high blood pressure and heart racing and anger and frustration. When you know how to work with these emotions, you can make stress work to your will, and it won't be such a detrimental thing in your life like it is with most people. Constant stress. Stress about everything. Stress about how the world's going. Stress about the politics right now. Who's going to get elected. The media's lying. The bullshit. The media. It's all crap. And it's just all unfabricated, artificially created stress. Psychological warfare. Because they know that when you push the brain to certain points where it reacts emotionally, then you can put it in a different states of being, I guess you could say, different states or wave patterns. This is part of what mind control is a part of. So you have alpha wave pattern, beta wave pattern, and theta. All these different brain wave patterns exhibit different behaviors within the brain's makeup, within how your body operates. So when you put somebody under a bunch of stress, you're operating their brain under a certain wave pattern. This is how we get mind control in very sophisticated forms, at least on how the media and movies and certain news channels and certain ideologies that get you really mad and frustrated. It's triggering. This is where we get the word trigger from. It has to do with mind control. You want to know where these trigger warnings come from? They come from mind control, because you're triggering, just like the Manchurian Candidate. The way that works is you snap your fingers and somebody reacts to a certain situation. That is a real thing. And you implement triggers. So let's say, for example, if you were to, I'm not advocating this whatsoever, but if you beat a dog and you raise your hand and it flinches, that's a trigger. It's a trigger in the brain because it thinks it knows it's coming. Now, you can sophisticate that even further into different ways and formats of what certain people use for mind control. And that's how that works in one form. So you have to learn how to work with stress, because so much of it is not under your control. It has really nothing to do with you. If you think about it, a lot of the stress really has nothing to do with you. It's mostly just artificially fabricated bullcrap. Think about what kind of stresses most people have. Paying their taxes. That's illegitimate. Worrying about the politics. That's even more legitimate bullcrap. The list goes on and on and on. These are artificially created stressful environments that we're put in on a daily basis. Most of it really has nothing to do with you. And that's one of the reasons it's always out of your control, which is what stresses people. They're not in control of the situation. Like my computer dying, it really wasn't any of my... I had nothing to do with that. It froze up, it died, and I couldn't work with it again until I'm able to potentially replace a part or two. That was out of my control, but it causes stress. So we have to understand these principles about how learning how to deal with stress, because it's going to help us in the long run. And as things get more crazy in this world, if you know how to handle stress and work with stress, you're going to be much better off. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say, and I hope everybody